What are you building?
Beast Negas.
Because they aren't going to build themselves?
They are not. I tried. I put them all together. I get them the bases and the glue, and I put everything in one spot. Nothing.
Jerks.
I think when I get tired of trying to make the Speed Freaks thing work, 3 skill rigs full of guys is definitely a great direction to go. And so I'm just trying to get that ready.
Stephanie, I bought her a Surface for Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
a Microsoft Surface, and I got her the pen so she could make art on it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure she slept.
Yeah.
Like she just
Just
literally
playing
sat
with it.
next to me in the bed last night. I would imagine the whole night, and just drew things on her, and it was so great. Like it was so fun to see her. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think she had like the actual childhood Christmas enthusiasm, which was really really fun.
I've been thinking
Hello?
about
Hi, Mitch.
Hey. Okay, just making sure
Something's
everything's
up.
working.
Something weird is up with your camera, man.
Yeah, my computer came in from one of our cars, and it's so cold out that the
Mhm.
whole computer is misting up. It's just condensation from how cold it is.
Yep.
Well,
Same.
that's amazing. Why was it in your car?
Because we were supposed to go out to our Cedro property to plan out the next remodel, and I
Oh,
was going to draw it up on there. So
oh, mm-hmm.
but I
I've
can
done
try.
that exact thing when I was doing on-call stuff. Run out, grab the computer to solve a problem. You're like, whoa, well, this is interesting.
Yeah, it took a few times to boot up because it's a aluminum chassis, so it's really cold.
Oh yeah. I bet it was even annoying to carry it. I bet it was so cold.
I had a backpack, luckily.
So I was gonna buy Mitch while we're
Mhm.
letting people wander in here. I was gonna buy new RAM for my oldest computer, and
Sure.
I looked up the motherboard because I bought it, and I realized I bought his motherboard and processor 12 years ago.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, let's just do all the new things. So I spent yesterday building a PC with my oldest, and it's the first time I've ever spent big money on a case because I
What'd you
always
get?
thought that was stupid. Like my computer's always been under my desk my whole life, so I haven't cared.
Yeah.
If it's attractive or not doesn't matter. Now that I've built a computer in an expensive case, I feel like a fool. Like it was
Yeah.
so much easier to work with a case where somebody actually thought through.
Hmm.
They thought through the entire process. Man, it was
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I have a Lian Lee case that I'm rebuilding my computer because it's also 10 years over a decade old now. And I finally found a processor motherboard combo that seemed worth the cost. But I'm sticking with this case because it's the only case I know of that has like room for 15 hard drives and all the different crazy shit I do. So,
Fair
but
enough. Well, everyone can hear us, so I guess we should roll with doing a show for them.
well, that
I
seems
hear. I think
reasonable.
there's this thing called Warhammer 40K. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know firsthand, but
There's certainly been a lot of rumors flying about it lately, from what I've seen.
yeah. So we have our agenda. Let me actually blow my nose on mute, and then we'll
Yeah, I'll
go.
be right back. I'll be back in 5 seconds.
4, 3, 2, 1. Lied to us.
It's not the first time.
Won't be the last time.
Won't be the last time. Let's see. We got
And back.
some
Sorry.
some Peter
That was more
watching
like
us. We
10
got
seconds.
some Jason.
Yeah,
We got
I
some
really
Virgil
calculated
Matthew.
just how long it would take me to get there, not the return trip. That's a typical logistics issue.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's actually why everything from Games Workshop is delayed. They figured out how long it would take to send the order, but how long it would take to come back on the boat, very different.
I did buy some stuff from Forge World, and I did get it just now, 8 weeks later. So that was pretty good.
I mean, for Forge World, 8 weeks is just sort of normal time period. So I think
Yeah.
Well, what's really great is on my order, when I went to check it, it says this order was delivered within 20 business days. It says that on the order. And I kind of want to email them to just say, no, formal declaration of shenanigans.
Yeah.
You can't just put that on the order if it's not true. That's not fair. So, okay.
Well, it was delivered somewhere within 20 business days. It didn't say to you.
You know, according to the tracking information, I don't even think that's true.
They put that sticker on it 20 more than 20 business days later.
Bulldog Sith, every time he watches us, his name makes me think of Frasier with the character Bulldog. This sucks! This is total BS! That's what he said all the time. Okay. Nobody cares. Let's move on. We're going to get started. Provided we have a Mitch. Do we have a Mitch?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Occasionally. We have an occasional Mitch.
I've been wiping down my monitor trying to get the moisture.
Well, yeah, your
dissipate.
camera's doing much better.
Yeah,
It's because it was outside, people.
No, I actually,
Leave the
Danny
mystery.
was here recently, so the moisture levels are just.
Oh, don't let Danny use your computer. That is not a good idea.
Yeah. Even
the
playing
often
with him on
moist computer.
TTS, like it was a problem.
I feel like the end of the episode might be an audio clip of me saying, "Don't let Danny use your computer. It's not a good idea." I think that might be. All right. Okay, are we ready
Yep.
to do this
Probably
incredibly
not.
serious task?
The hardest part of the whole show.
Yeah. Welcome to Best in Faction.
A podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k.
I'm Colin.
I'm Mitch.
I'm Chuck.
You are Chuck. It's true. In fact, of all the people I know, you are the most Chuck.
I know very few other Chucks, so this is me. My space.
I was watching what's that TV show? Burn Notice again, and every time Bruce Campbell goes under into an alias, he's always Chuck Finley, and I would think there's nobody who uses that name other than you.
It's not a very good alias. I think people would be like, oh, that's a suspect name. Is that really your name?
My father's middle name is Charles, and we got a Christmas gift for him when I was a kid to Chuck. And I was like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, the relatives I don't like called me Chuck as a child. I'm like, oh, okay.
And they still do.
They do, yeah. Actually, he doesn't talk to any of them because they only call him when they need money. But let's move on. All right, so we are doing, this is episode 99, which I've already come up with a name for because it's Today We're Going to Party Like It's episode 99.
Okay,
It
good.
just seems,
I'm glad you're on it.
it just seems appropriate. For the young people, that's a quote. That's a Prince song. There was this year 1999. See,
For the young people, get out of here.
yeah, right.
Well, for the
We're
young
gonna talk
people,
about,
it's a
like, being-
Prince
we're gonna
song.
talk
For
about
the
being
people who
grown-ups
are
here.
Slightly younger or slightly older than those people, it's a Weird Al song.
Tyler Bortel, I'm sorry you have to turn this off and let the grown-ups talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go to
Okay.
bed.
All right,
early for
so for episode 99, we're going to talk about what each of us are thinking and doing currently in 40K. At the beginning of the month out here in the Great Pacific Northwest, we had Mary Slanesh, one of our best majors of the year. Went super great. Final table was 2 Thick City lists, so we aren't going to have them on to talk about that. Good job to them both. Excellent placement at a tournament. Nobody wants to hear about your Thick City versus Thick City mirror. So,
I do want to just shout
Well,
out for
so-
Jonathan.
so-
That was his first GT win.
oh, was it?
So,
Oh, well, yeah,
yeah.
he deserves that shout out then.
Super
So,
exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and he's a newer member because Starks won, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Starks is a newer member of our area, and I got a chance to meet him a couple tournaments ago. I quite like him. I had a good chance to talk to
cool
him.
guy.
I haven't played him yet. I think you've played him a few times, though, Chuck, haven't you?
Yeah. We played a few times and we've had a couple lunches and stuff. Like we've been at the same tournament several times now, so we get to know each other a bit.
Yeah, he's from Team Zero Comp, right?
Yeah.
So he must have moved up here from California,
Yep,
based
exactly.
just on that information.
Well, you nailed it.
Yeah, so he won, and congrats to him. I didn't realize it was his first major win. I presumed he'd won one before. So good job to him. That's great. Thick City versus Thick City mirror was pretty funny. I wasn't able to go, so I don't have a story to tell you of the tournament. I had some personal commitments that needed me to focus on them. But both Mitch and Chuck had a chance to go. Neither of them won the tournament, but they both have great stories to tell. So we're going to let them tell those stories. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Tyranids, because I did get a chance to try out Monster Mash into Chuck the other day, and I have some thoughts about that.
The
Yeah,
minus
me too.
one Monster Mash.
Yeah, it was fun to play. Like, I played with a Trigon Prime, and it was the actual model, and it was painted, which was pretty... Considering it was the first time I've ever put a Trigon Prime on
That's
the
actually
table.
a first in all of Warhammer 40k, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I actually went out to all of my big monster models and took a picture of them and sent them to my Tyrannid friends and said, which of these is the Trigon Prime? Is actually what happened. And somebody said, well, the painted one is a Moloch Trigon Prime kit bash that's pretty cool. And I'm like, great, I'll use that one. So anyways, so I'll talk about that. And then most of our episode, we're going to do a lightning round. We have a bunch of really great listener questions about the state of the game, other things that are going on. Before we do that, I have a couple things I want to run through that are just kind of just update you guys on the news of Biff Pod. The first one, and I know this is going to bum people out, we are going to have to cancel Hammer Out Cancer, the off season charity hammer event with all locals that we were going to do. We started that event by doing it last year because of COVID. We couldn't have everybody out for Charity Hammer. What that taught me and my wife who run Charity Hammer is that Charity Hammer in July and August is just better than Charity Hammer in January. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. It's so much better. It's easier to get everybody here. We can be outside. Like it's a lot better. So
people don't have to immediately travel again for LVO.
People didn't just travel for Christmas. With COVID in particular, having everybody come here right after the holidays is really irresponsible. So, anyways, so the problem is I thought I would be able to easily run 2 events a year, and maybe I will be able to at some point, but that point is not right now. This is not for, this is for a wide swath of people, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll just say that I'm dealing with some personal challenges. They need my priority. So my family and I basically just can't prioritize that right now. Also, I am going to just say that I personally, nobody else, not speaking for Chuck, not speaking for Mitch, I personally do not think the community is being responsible enough regarding COVID. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not trashing anybody. Keep doing whatever you think is the best decision for you and your family. For my family, I'm not going. I canceled going to New Orleans. I canceled going to Slaanesh. I'm not doing Hammer Out Cancer, and I'm also not going to LVO for the first time in 4 years, 5 years, something like that. So that's where I'm at. The general gist of that is not that I think that it's the end of the world if I get COVID. I am vaccinated as much as you can be. I know you guys don't want to be preached to. I'm just going to share my thinking on it, and then if Mitch and Chuck want to say something, they can, and then we'll talk about 40K. So, Omicron doesn't care if you're vaccinated. Basically, there's a little bit of protection, but not a lot. The booster helps. It's not perfect. Yes, it's true that Omicron often doesn't have as deadly of symptoms. My concern here is COVID is only getting worse if you look at the numbers, not better. And I would like our country to go back to normal. So I don't understand why we would all make bad decisions regarding that. And the minimum thing that people can do to protect each other is wear a mask. And the pictures of Warhammer tournaments has made it very clear to me that people don't want to do that. So until we can take it seriously, I'm going to be on a little bit of a break. Or the numbers get better. Both of those are completely reasonable. So I'm not going to judge anybody else for going. I'm not going to judge anybody else for playing. My personal opinion is that the way that New Orleans was handled in particular was reckless. The city even has a mask rules. The city has rules that weren't followed. We're a community that's playing games that don't save the world, that don't make the world a better place other than to make us all happy. The least we can do is be careful and do what we can. If everybody was actually having their vaccination cards checked and actually wearing masks, I'd be traveling to tournaments. But since that's not what we're doing, I'm not going to do it. So that's it. No telling you how to live your life. I just wanted you guys to know where I'm coming from because I'm not going to LVO, and I know Chuck's not either for basically this topic. So before we continue and talk about 40K, if you guys would like to say anything about COVID, you can. I feel like I said it the way that I wanted to say it.
I don't really have much to say. I'm kind of in a similar space. I'm going to be playing locally where I can ensure the kind of behavior
Right.
that I think is appropriate for me to take risks with. I think a lot of people are doing that. So I do miss going to LVO, but like for me, it's more than a decade's worth of going in a row, and it's gone now, but that's fine.
Mitch, anything from you, man?
No, I think you guys have.
Oh, the thing I
Oh,
wanted
excuse
to
me. Go ahead.
say, the scariest scenario for me isn't that I get COVID. The scariest scenario for me isn't even that I get COVID and bring it home and give it to my kids, one of which is high risk. The scary scenario for me is that I get COVID, I spread it to other people, and they die, even if those people are strangers. And that's why I think people not wearing masks is crazy. So, okay. Thank you for tolerating me. I know you guys don't want me to talk about COVID on every episode. I appreciate that. If you disagree, I respect you. Let's just move on with life. Okay. A number of other interesting things have happened. A couple weeks ago, Michael Tempe was visiting for my birthday, actually, which was an incredibly fun weekend. We had an incredibly small crew of incredibly COVID safe gamers come out, and I played a little bit of 40K, some Marvel Crisis Protocol, and we also did a stream day for Outward Realms. For those that haven't listened to the show long enough, Outward Realms is a tabletop war game that's been created by Michael Tempe and a wide collection of talented people. It has amazing models. The Kickstarter was a huge success. Models are gorgeous. Gameplay is amazing. It plays. It's kind of a smaller scale game than 40K. You play on a 4x4. It does alternating activations, which makes it strategically a lot different than 40K. And again, the models are great.
Yeah, I actually have all of mine right here.
Just in that big bag right there. That's right. We're
Yeah,
all of us
I got
trying
it.
to find time to assemble all of our Outward Realms models.
I have ordered
That
the
that not
paints
only
for
got
my
put on
nightfall,
stream,
so
but
I'm
it's being
excited.
put up on Outward Realms YouTube channel. It was a little bit of each. We played 3 games each. We played basically all of the armies into all of the armies from the kind of the start. Their version of the start collecting box. Nah, not really start collecting. It's more like the what's that called? The Battle
It's an
Force
army
box.
box. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's enough to play the game. Where
yeah. It's
start
enough to
collecting is
have
like,
like a tournament ready amount of stuff with a little bit of variety. I think.
yeah.
Um, Anyways, fantastic. You can find it online. I can't say enough about how much I like Outward Realms. They are not a sponsor of the show. I am just bringing this up because I want you guys to know how great it is. So that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. And we will be streaming more of it just because we like it. Not
Yeah.
just because I didn't agree. I didn't promise you guys that our Twitch would only be 40K streams. And I like Outward Realms, so you're going to have to see some Outward Realms if you want to watch our streams. Uh, both I'm having my Batra painted up by a commissioned painter. Uh, Chuck's got the Realm. We have friends in the area that have a bunch of different armies. I think Mitch has 2 of them.
I have the Hexagoda and the Nightfall to make sure that the four of us, that we had all four armies between us.
Nice.
So
And now, of course,
yeah,
we've got Jason up there too, who also has the Hexagata. So, or no, the Nightfall. Sorry, who has the
Nightfall.
Nightfall. So if you built the Hexagata first, we'd have all 4 of them very quickly. Cool.
yeah.
I don't imagine you building them first because I'm just going to psychically guess that you're more excited about the Nightfall. How'd I do?
I'm more excited about the paint job that's going to be happening for the Nightfall.
Okay.
So,
That's a sentence I've never heard you say before, so it must be
well,
serious.
the nice thing with starting a new game is you can be like, hey, this is the game I'm going to have nice painted armies in. When you have thousands of models in various levels of paint condition in a game, it's very hard to be like, okay, nothing but good looking armies now, and then it's like, oh well, that got good, and I already have 5 of them, but they look like crap. Well, I guess I'm not keeping that vow.
Right.
Um,
You know
like
what's
that's
funny
the
about that,
problem.
Mitch? Part of the reason I'm taking a little bit of a 40K break because of not traveling to tournaments. Not traveling to tournaments for me basically takes all my enthusiasm away. Not all of it. I love 40K and I read about it every day. But anyways, I'm taking a little bit of a break with Marvel Crisis Protocol. And one of the reasons why, which is super relevant to what Mitch just said, is a team is 10 dudes. And so, as someone who's not particularly good at hobby, I'm using it as an opportunity to challenge myself and say, okay, I don't normally do multi level highlighting. Let's do multi level. Like today, I'm going to do multi level highlighting on the Hulk because he's one model. And when he's done, if I like how he looks, he's done. I don't have to paint 9 more Hulks. However, I do now want to play a game where you have 10 Hulks in a unit. Um, so
They're
really
called
enjoying that.
Aberrants,
Really
and
enjoying that little
they
bit of a
rock the
hobby,
world.
break to paint something different where it's just like, okay, here's one dude and you have a mental image of what he looks like. Put paint on him, right? Like, that's been really fun. So, yeah. Okay, let me think. Did I cover all of the news?
Well, you were talking about, not being able to necessarily engage with 40K as much competitively, and I think that that's been the case for everyone in the pandemic. And I, lately have been just going down the audiobook rabbit hole. And I'm in last week I listened to 4 books, I think.
Mm.
So I've been going down all of the Watchers of the Throne and the Vaults of Terra novels, which are all about Inquisition and Custodes and just a lot of really cool inner workings of Terran politics that you don't necessarily get in the flavor of obviously playing the game. And it was very cool. It's getting me hyped for Custodes coming out, and that was the main reason I had kind of gone down that rabbit hole. Is they're very prominent in all those books, and you get to kind of see them compared, in the lore to all these other types of combatants. And the Chris Wright has done an amazing job for really being able to distill that flavor and feel of how they're like individual artisans, whereas Space Marines are like these brutal teams that work together. Um, yeah, so that like that's been really keeping my like flame for the game going. And I'm getting really excited for Custodes coming out and to have a bunch of new um, rules to play with.
I'm getting ready for them too.
Yeah, there you go.
Because
Shield
it's
boys.
the last army that Chuck hasn't painted.
Yep.
Also,
points of Custodes, and I've collected them all. I haven't kept them all because that's
I mean,
impossible.
and that's like 9 models, so
No, I got like $1,000 or so worth of them. So like,
Well,
it's a
no, I'm
lot
kidding.
of Custodes.
No,
Mitch,
it
we
is a
only
lot.
play
I was
2,000
making-
points. He only needs 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have way more than that.
Yeah. No, they're very cool in the lore. It's been fun to have the lore side motivate something in the like play side for me. I don't think that that's necessarily the journey I normally go through when I'm getting excited for an army. I mean, like there are certain specific ones, but they've always been the lore I've enjoyed. So finding new pieces of lore that got me more deeply into the universe was cool. It was not something I'd done in a long time.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know if if you feel this way, Mitch, but my hyperfixation issues basically mean that whatever hobby I'm currently interested in is all my brain wants to do ever. So when I was getting back into 40K, I watched thousands of battle reports and watched YouTube videos on all the lore and did all the things. And this last week, I found myself in my free time watching the Marvel movies again. Well, why would I be doing that? Oh, because my brain wants to play Marvel Crisis Protocol. So it's been fun reading the comics and stuff again for comic books and like learning the backstories so that when I play the game, my brain has kind of an idea of the narrative. But it's also amusing just to watch my brain be like, well, we're focused on this thing right now. So what's everything we can do related to that thing that's interesting? Let's just do all those things. We don't need to like do work or clean the house. Let's just focus on that. So,
This is what's important.
right. My brain has decided that this is what's important, and who am I to argue?
Isn't that called stimming, right? When you find the thing that's hyper stimulating and you just keep doing the thing.
Yeah,
because
right?
it's giving you the dopamine.
Yeah, that's right. Delicious dopamine.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what's going on with us. I'm not, I'll just be clear. I am really enjoying Marvel Crisis Protocol. It does have a fantastic rule set, and there's a lot to like about it. I am actually hosting my first Marvel Crisis Protocol tournament on January 22nd. If somebody's interested in that, you better be vaccinated and willing to wear a mask, but let me know and we'll see if we can get you into that. Okay. Oh, it's local. It's not a TTS tournament, just to be clear. All right.
Well,
just to reassure everybody, I'm not going
For
anywhere.
a TTS tournament. That would have been amazing.
What's
I just
that?
want to put it out there. If they're like, no, we have to have a camera on you, and I want to see your card and your mask the whole time you play on TTS.
It's actually funny in the TTS, and the MCP has a more modern rule set than 40K category of topics. The TTS build out for MCP makes the 40K one look foolish. It is so well structured and streamlined to make it easy to play on TTS, to the point where, partially because the game came out during COVID, its competitive community is basically entirely on TTS. We're actually thinking about running a TTS league in the BiffPod Discord for those of us that are kind of taking a little bit of a 40K break. Anyways, just to reassure everybody, BiffPod's not going anywhere. I love doing the show. 40K is not going anywhere. I love 40K. I'm just taking a short break. I promise you that if the Gene Stealer Codex doesn't make me obsessively talking about 40k nonstop. The Craft World Eldar Codex, I've got no hope of defending against that. Uh,
Those new bikes, man.
the plain new Eldar stuff being good is amazing. In fact, I was gonna come on the show today and say, well, I saw the new preview models for Eldar, and we're talking about nothing but that for the next 3 hours. Like that's how I felt seeing new Eldar models coming out. So I'm not going anywhere. I just needed a short break, and it comes entirely down to my goals and the fact that I don't have anywhere to go to play 40k that I'm excited about right now. So okay. On with the actual content of the show, a mere 20 minutes in. So let's start with Mitch. Mitch, why don't you tell us about your experience of taking the new and improved Robot Dance Party to Slaanesh? I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. So I had actually been flip-flopping quite a bit right before the tournament or the submission on whether or not to do the original Dread Knight Dance Party or to go in the new direction that I felt like was more important, which is to drop the Grey Knights and to go with a completely non-psyker. I can take a horror against Grey Knights so that I can kind of balance out their auto 15 secondary version. But I ended up sticking with what I knew and what I had the reps in, and that ended up being the 3 Telemon with the Shield Captain that lets me out redeploy a bit and then gives me heroic interventions on all the Telemon, and then the patrol of Scions with 1 commander, 1 elite squad, and then 2 troop squads, or 3 troop squads, I believe. Sorry, and just my rod squads 1 through 4. That's all they did. That's all they were ever going to do. And then all the Dread Knights you know and love, which were 3 Dread Knights and 1 Grandmaster Dread Knight, with the Grandmaster being, or with all of them, me going over to Sword Bearers. So I had the +1 to hit and +1 to wound instead of the generating CP Warlord trait on Prescient Brethren, which I had, but after the last tournament, it generating me a whole 1 CP for the entire tournament, I decided to drop that. But yeah. Basically, it was a really refined version of that list. It's very, very Smash Mouth. It really just wants to play a grindy game where it gets 87 points pretty much every game, and basically asks if you can get more than that. I'm not going to go into all my games because this was a 6-round event in 2 days, so it was a grind. Just for that extra last game makes a big difference in your drive home and in your performance. It does. But I felt really good about the list. I felt very confident in its matchups. There were 2 matchups I knew were going to be a problem, and I played both of them, so that's fun. So the first one being Noah Badom, someone we talk about a lot on this podcast lately because we've been going to a lot of local tournaments, and he certainly is present at all of them, always with a very
term
well
you're looking for is ever present.
Ever present with ever well painted armies with ever nicer display boards. I had played Noah at the last event at Dark Tower and beaten him by 2. And he had since then added a 6th Dread Knight and teched for me specifically. So I was like, well, I probably don't win that game this time. Because, I mean, he's very good at what he does. And he's played me before. He knows what my list does, and he's accounted for it. So I played against him, and we had... so the first thing I want to say is Jason ran an amazing event. There was never a time it was hard to find a judge. We had 360 access around the tables, as always. Good mask policy. Everything was, pretty comfortable. And the event center in Ocean Shores is always just a great venue. It's got a lot of space. It's got tons of bathrooms. There's never a line for anything. So all that stuff I tend to really appreciate. The games I had were all amazing. I'm not gonna. It's been 3 weeks since we had Christmas and everything in between, so I'm not gonna go into all of them in detail. But the one thing I want to talk about real quick is having randomized pairings, so that your score doesn't matter as much. makes such a difference for being able to play with an opponent who maybe maybe you're just a bad matchup for them. You have the tools to deal with them, but it allows you to play the game in a way where I don't have to. I can take my foot off the gas, or I can play in a way that I make sure you at least have a good time. And that is not necessarily an option you have available to you when you're playing at larger events and you're trying to place if you don't have that randomized pairings.
Well, I think that plus the fact that we had enough rounds to people that there was going to be one true winner.
That too. Yeah, those two things combined made a huge difference in kind of how I think people were able to approach games, because you were able to, like, I had one game where I was playing a Corn, two super heavy, what are they, the pain trains.
Lord of Skulls.
Thank you. Yes, 2 Lord of Skulls and some other stuff. And it's like, well, if I was pure Grey Knights, this is a really bad matchup for me. But because I'm not pure Grey Knights, I can just kill stuff and not have it come back. And so that was a bad matchup for him. But I was able to make sure we had a great game. We had a blast. Like, even though that game was pretty in hand by like turn 2. Like, he still had a great time. I still had a great time. And I really appreciate that about, like you said, having enough rounds for a true winner and having random pairings. I was like, oh, cool, I'm only going to get a 72 win. I don't care. Does not matter. We both had a great game. It really made that a much more enjoyable experience. We're not using player place terrain, something important for people to note. Jason has his own system, and we've used that system at Charity Hammer, and I personally prefer it for the most part. There's, it's the trade-off of agency. Obviously, players can feel like they get screwed in a deployment or whatever if something is off, whereas you never have that in player place because you get to just, hold a mirror up to the player and be like, who hurt you? But going back to the game, so I played into the 2 army. I'm going to focus on the 2 armies that I knew were going to be a hard matchup, and they were definitely some of the best games to talk about anyway. And the first one again was Noah. We had played before, and when I got paired into him, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be like a gentleman's off, because we're both really great sports. We both like each other. We've played each other a bunch of different times, and so I'm like, this is just going to be like, it's going to be a great game, but like, it's going to be super tight, and we're going to be really good sports about it. Man, that's going to be all the things, and it turned out to be all of those things. He won by, I believe, 7, and it was such a tight game. Like, to give you an example, if I roll 1 higher on a move, it's a 12-point swing in that game. So long story short, we had a blast. He was able to pull it out. It was just a lot of back and forth. No one really had any dice spikes or anything abnormal. It was just a lot of great decisions that all mattered. And after the game, he's like, dude, that was like one of the best games I think I've ever had in 40K, certainly at least this year. And then he like went and like talked to his wife on the phone about how great the game was. It was awesome. It was so positive, so great. And I actually like asked him to give me some of the thoughts on why we had such a great game from his perspective. And he had made some, like, fresh afterwards, like, on the drive back. So he made some really interesting points I wanted to hit on. Because for me, this tournament was about sportsmanship more than anything else, just having a great time. And I feel like it went great. So what he was what he mentioned was we both had a clear alignment of goals at the table. We've played each other before. We knew how to play by intent, and we stuck to that intent. There was a point where he had moved on to the shooting phase, but a psychic power he had declared he wanted to cast. He's like, oh man, I didn't cast it. I'm like, well, you declared it. That was like, you said what your intent was. You haven't gained any information that changes that decision. Just do the thing. And so we were able to have a really, really great game that was kind of free of disagreements on game state. And I think that was because we were both so interested in making sure our opponent was very comfortable and very aware of what was going on. And so because that trust was there, we were able to be very forgiving with each other, but in a competitive manner. It was never like there were other things where we're like, hey, okay, we gained too much information, we can't go back on that. Like there were those points, but because we could clearly communicate why, and it wasn't I think the issue becomes when you have a tense moment in a game, it's always because one person thought it was one thing, the other person thought it was the other, right? It's always that disruption in game state. And if you can have a game where both people are are willing to give each other the benefit of the doubt that, hey, you said it, therefore you wanted it. Now, if someone obviously is going back and forth on that, that's gaming, that's being gamey with it, and that would break that trust. So I think that it really just came down to in that part we were more focused on having fun than purely winning, and that was really important to both of us, and it came through in the game. The other thing he said is he felt like we were rooting for each other, which I think was fair. We're both playing, Grey Knights to some degree, that was the other part of it. There's commonality in rules, so we had a fantastic game because there were no rules questions because we knew each other's rules really well. But we were rooting for each other. It went like when we got to the final round, I'm like, dude, I think you got this. Like, you just need to do X, X, and X. And he rolled it out, and boom, he made it. And it was a fantastic, like, just positive experience. I know it sounds like I'm rambling here, but that's just because it's so rare that you have such a phenomenal game with an opponent in when you're both undefeated, and it is all still to play for. And it was just a really fantastic game where I could not believe that I like afterwards that it just went that smoothly. It was natural. Noah's a fantastic guy and a wonderful opponent. And he kicked my butt. It was a really great time. After that, I got paired into his brother, who was playing Corn, like I mentioned earlier. We had a great game, and then I ended up playing Steve Trimble, our local ITC scoreboard leader, and he was also playing Custodes, the triple Telemon. He is the guy who has been rocking this way before me, scaring people for a long time, and I was like, this was the other one where I'm like, man, he has the reps on it. There's going to be a skill gap of knowledge of the list. And then the other part of it is it's just going to be a 4-up off. Like, we both have armies made up of 4-up invulnerable saves. We have to see what happens. He had just taken his first loss for the event, and so he had been knocked out of contention. I think he was a little frustrated with that. And so we got into this game. He was able to go first, start shoving his Telemon right down my throat, as I knew he would, because that's all he has to do if he can get his Telemon to connect. I can't kill more than a Telemon a turn. And it was like I said, it was a 4-up off. But I was able to make sure we had a great time. And again, by the end of it, we were laughing, we're joking, we're having a blast. And every single game was like that. It was just a really, really positive and fun experience of 40K.
Wonderful. That's great. I don't think I have anything to ask you about or say. Chuck, what about you?
Yeah, you've been doing this list or a similar one like it with the Telemons, the Dread Knights, and everything, and been getting a pretty good, very consistent high-end result, right? You've been getting a good win percentage out of it.
Yeah, I think my lowest score is like 61.
Yeah, I think that.
Did we lose Chuck?
Chuck, we can't hear you.
Yeah, we've lost you, bud.
That's really interesting.
Oh,
it was right when you were making a good point.
How about now?
I just presume that he's always making a good point. That makes it easy.
That's true. That's fair.
Why talk unless you're going to make a good point?
Yeah.
Which is a good point. No, you've been sending me lists that don't have any of this stuff in it, but they look similar.
Yeah.
Is this sort of where you're like how do we put this? At the beginning of 9th, you were struggling to find a playstyle that worked for you, and it feels like you're settling into robots, giant, zombie robots.
Well, so the philosophy behind that right now is it's time commitment. I can't get the reps in to play a much more complex list where you're gonna have a lot of little tools and there's a lot of things to manage. Like I would love to start playing AdMech again now that they've been nerfed, and I feel like there's still lots of good like soil to work there. That is A tier, A plus kind of thing, but it's just time commitment. For all those things I don't necessarily have. I can play Dreadnoughts and stuff like that and have a great time. My opponents have a great time. The stuff dies for the most part. I mean, it's interactive, but it's also not super taxing on me. But what I actually found that I liked about the list is they play a long game. It's not a quick game. For the most part, you're not just tabling people unless it's a really bad mismatch, or they're playing like super heavies, and one side's gonna die, either way very quickly. Otherwise, it's really a play your mission, play to the game plan, and stick to it, and math out if you're going to get enough points, and if not, how to modify the outcome. And that's been useful for sharpening my game in that direction of like I've always been a very intuitive player, so like things like drop pods, lots of redeploy, all that stuff allows for a lot of flexibility. So I just analyze what's in front of me and react. But this has been the whole point of the Dread Knight Dance Party, was to take something and refine it and have a game plan that it has to run to and execute. And yeah, sometimes I'll have to be intuitive and adaptive with it, but for the most part, it needs to play the game it was designed to play, and it's sort of forcing me to do that.
I think, Mitch, and you mentioned this, you basically said this, but I'm going to say it in a different way to help people hear you. Both you and I are proponents of when you need to get mechanics crisp, play an elite army. Both of us have talked about that before. What happens is when you're playing a horde of 150 models, sometimes, especially for me, so I'm not going to speak for Mitch here, you get so focused on trying to keep up with playing the army quick enough that you make mistakes and you miss things, and you don't work on the fundamental mechanics. And so I found that when I really felt like I leveled up at 40k was when I stopped playing Tyranids and moved to Eldar for a while and went to with 25% as many models, and found that I was playing, and then played Tau after that, right? I felt like I suddenly had time to take a breath and take a step back and look at the game state and make really crisp, good decisions. And now when I go back to a Horde army, I find that I'm much more comfortable seeing it that way. Yeah,
you sort of pre-practiced what good decisions look like. And so when you use the Horde, you have time to move and to think at the same time.
Right. So it's a thing for people to think about for sure.
Well, and I think also for me, it's with that small number of models, it means I'm not having to worry about making rules mistakes. I don't have to keep a bunch of different data slates in my head at the same time necessarily.
Yep.
And it also is just a mental fatigue game for me, right? Like I have a limited bandwidth still. I'm still in recovery. So being able to, on both days, it was only my last game I started having like, like you start making mistakes of like, oh wait, well, I wounded on a 5, right? Oh no, 4, sorry. Like that kind of nonsense where you're just starting to slow down and make errors. It was very little compared to if I had been playing like Matt Riley's guard list, for example, where he has to do everything just right to be able to have a game, and he's playing a lot of moving parts always.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, that was really interesting, Mitch. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Chuck, do you want to talk a little bit about Speed Freaks?
Yeah. So, excuse me. I love that army. I'm talking about the Army of Renowned. I think it's really interesting. It has a pretty big negative in that you're not allowed to have any infantry in the list at all. So secondaries are pretty rough. But the rest of the benefits are pretty good. So let's kind of talk about what I brought. I brought a War Boss on bike. He came with the Red Mecha's redder armor, redder paint. Sorry, it's paint now. And then I also gave him the Faster Than Use, which allows a core unit to advance in charge or fall back in charge. To go with that, I had 2 squads of 9.
Chuck, I believe we cannot hear you again.
Oh,
you just came back.
All right.
It was a hiccup. We had 2 squads of 9, and then it stopped.
Oh, three squads. 2 squads of 9 bikes, squad of 5 bikes. Those are all core, so they can use the Faster Than Use to charge. So they can go 20 inches and then make a charge.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it creates a lot of play on the table. And then 3 squads of 6 Defcoptas and 2 Wazbomb Blaster Jets with the Teleporter Blastas. one of them having the force field, and then also being the flyboy, so it has light cover. And Abadabs. If I'd had Abadabs in my list, I think I would have done even better.
She was gonna just destroy everything if I didn't pick her up. There was so much noise
No, yeah.
being generated.
Well, she knows what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to kind of go through each of my games and touch on a couple of them a little more thoroughly. But the journey of this weekend was really important, and I want to kind of illustrate it and then discuss my point about it. So I started first game against Steve's Imperial Knight list. In the last GT I went to, Steve wrecked me with this list. He picked up my army when he tabled everything but a truck in 3 turns, and then finally got the truck on turn 5. I just basically ran and hid, so trying not to be tables. This game was the exact opposite. I got my revenge. The change in list meant that he wasn't as efficient in killing my stuff, and the rockets on the Koptas murder knights, particularly the baby knights. So I eliminated his army down to just big knights, and then he couldn't keep up with his score. So the game went quick. It was a lot of fun. He's always a fun opponent, so it was a good time. And I love starting out at a tournament that way, right, where you just sit down with somebody who you only get to play at tournaments and have a great game. So from there, I got to go directly into to play a game against Tanner. He's playing what was the new hotness for Tyranids then, not Nidzilla because that wasn't out yet, but this was the Leviathan list with only one squad of Hive Guard, but a bunch of Gene Stealers and stuff. Our game was pretty tight. We were playing very carefully. We both really enjoyed playing each other. Tanner missed moving his Malanthrope. I think that's correct. The -1 aura. He missed moving that far enough over to give one of his squad's Gene Stealers a -1 to hit aura.
Uh-oh.
So I took advantage of that and eliminated his Gene Stealer threat over the course of 1 turn and populated his side of the board with bikes. And from there, things slipped up. I actually think I still only beat him by 28 points. If he hadn't made that mistake, that game would have been incredibly close. But because there was that mistake and it was so early, it was sort of sad for the two of us in a way, because that wasn't it's not the coolest way for the game to resolve, right? Like, it would have been more interesting to play a game like that without the mistake, but we still had a great time. Him and I get along really well, so we just laughed through it and had a great time. And then I ended the day by getting my first taste of Thick City.
How did that taste?
It was fine. I'll just spoil it. I won 83 to 80. I essentially created a scenario where I could move out onto the center objective, score my Stranglehold, and then spend the 2 CP to pick up the Death Copter squad and put it in Deep Strike, and repeat that. And then I would win the game. And I illustrated that to my opponent and let him spend the time, and he couldn't find a way to get past that other than to push his entire army out into the middle of the table. So he pushed out all the Talos and all the Kronos and just tried to take the center from me, physically prevent me from being there. And then when I came out and shot all my guns, it hit way too hard.
Were you rotating back and forth between 2 copter units? Because I think you said you're not playing that they could come in and leave on the same turn.
Correct. Yeah. When you have 3 units of Coptas, I could move 1 forward and move it back. I could move 1 forward and shoot at you and then leave the table. And the other one tries to go out on some cheeky, easy, safe mission where you can get an angle on whatever and not be in danger. Or just sometimes it just sits behind a ruin and that 300 points is stagnant for that turn. But you just sort of rotate through that way. And those rockets are great against the Talos. Right? It's wounding on 3s, and I'm only doing 2 damage per, and you hit the Field of Pains and all that. But they did work, and I got through them. And eventually just sort of pushed him down to space. He scored 45 points on secondaries, but only 25 points on the primary. All those bike squads and the Warlord having war OBSEC meant that as soon as I got rid of his smaller OBSEC models, I was able to continually push and take the centers. And often what I would do is I would push a unit of Coptas into the fight, and then the dregs of a bike unit so that they were OBSEC, right, but safe from being in combat. by the copters blocking them, that kind of thing. There was a lot of that tight sort of primary play. So that was my first day. 3-0. Great games, great opponents all the way around. Really excited, really pleased. Having a great time. Went out, had dinner with the team. Just generally having a really fun, really pleasant tournament. Very excited about my army. Come into day 2, we get a last minute repairing, and Zach and I get to play. I thought about my game with Zach quite a bit because he's one of the other strongest players at the event, and I know that I can't come into his smite bubble unless I come into his smite bubble with everything at once.
He's playing Thousand Suns, just to...
Yes, thank you. He's playing Thousand Suns. He's very good at it. He's been practicing it quite a bit.
He won a GP with it like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and if I come within 24 inches of him, he will wreck me. I tried to send my WAS bombs over and take off some of the smaller pieces of his army. We were fighting over a middle objective in priority targets. As far as who could win, with both of us looking at trying to hold more, right? Those WAS bombs they killed us a spawn. I sent them after what I think was reasonably a rhino into spawn, and they just killed the one spawn. And then they died. And what's unfortunate about that is I forgot what I had decided. If I am going to go within 24 inches, everything goes within 24 inches. Because he spent his whole turn killing those 2 WAS bombs. I could have been in a position to do a massive hammer blow to him after that. But I sent just the 2 WAS bombs by themselves. And then next time I went and I tried to send enough stuff at him, I was down all the wounds from the WAS bombs. So he was able to target more things. And that mistake just basically continued to plague me through the game. The proper way for me to play this would actually have been the way I had discussed with the Thick City opponent, where I'm going to move forward, I'm going to hold the objective with the Defcopters and get my stranglehold points, and then I'm going to leave the table. Your go. There's nothing for you to do. You can either come out into the center and have a chance at winning the game, or you can stay at home and I will win the game eventually. Forcing my opponent out on the table, where then I can then bring my whole army to bear on whatever he brings out. Screwed that up, which is unfortunate. I think like the last probably 5 times Zach and I have played, I have made major strategic blunders, and I don't know. I need to get past that with him. He doesn't leave space for those kinds of mistakes, so definitely got punished there. I'd still only lost by 4 points. One of my highest scoring games actually at 88 points for the tournament, but a lot of fun. With my 5th game was with Noah and his Grey Knights. I think this is right after he played Mitch, if I remember correctly.
That sounds about right.
For my game with Noah, I could feel that I was starting to physically and mentally be tired. I was having trouble thinking through like what's going to happen. If I do this, then what's my opponent's plan? Then what's my response to that? That kind of thinking was getting past me. And that's really unfortunate. I was physically tired, mentally exhausted from the weekend, and generally just not feeling like I'm in great tournament shape. I also made the mistake of having a fairly heavy lunch, which I think probably hammered that at home.
You're supposed to have Subway, Chuck. There's a process for this.
Yeah, they were out. The Subway was out of what I wanted, and I audible to meatballs, and that was a mistake. Cost me the game. So I made what I think was a really fun choice. I made Noah sit down before I told him my secondaries, and I told him I'm going to do big game, abhor the witch, and grind them down. I am going to kill you dead, 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 dead. Which is not necessarily a fully bad plan. I mean, once you're 2 kill secondaries in, you might as well go 3 because you don't get a different speed at that point. You are going to have to come at them. I came at him. I came up short on killing 2 Dreadnoughts by like a couple of wounds each, because those things are murderously difficult to get rid of. I got an education on the they have the damage, the psychic power that adds +1 damage.
Yeah.
That with a bunch of the intercessors, not intercessors, whatever the jumpy interceptors coming into close combat, they wreck lots of things.
Yeah. That's the thing that people it's easy to forget because Dread Knights are used as such shooting platforms. It's like, oh, +1 damage to shooting. It's like, no, and combat on that unit.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
both.
That was actually the first time he did it. He did it on one of the units of Coptas, killed about half the Copters with shooting, and then sent the poison to finish the job.
Yep.
So, that was effective.
It's very nasty. And then the only thing he has extended is the interceptors, and he can shunt them once out of combat if you charge them with just try to charge them with nonsense or something or do something else. So like there's lots of options there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when I charge, I do a bunch of mortal wounds to him in the charge phase, so he never gets to leave.
Yeah. But he should have a feel no pain against that. So that's something.
Sure. Yeah. Regardless, we played a really tight game, but I could definitely feel that I was sort of falling apart towards the end of it. And also just again, like he won by 9 points, and with a boar and big game, every Dread Knight is worth a ton of points.
Mm-hmm.
If I had that game is within several, like 3 to 5 dice rolls of flipping to my favor, right? Like that's how close we were against each other, which feels good. I really enjoyed it. Obviously he did as well. Noah's always super happy to enjoying every time he's playing 40k, so it's infectious. So I finally get my last round. It's actually somebody I haven't played Sean in a super long time. He was playing Knights instead of Tau. Just because Tau are, I think, in such a bad place, and Knights are sort of fun right now.
Imperial Tau.
Yeah. He's actually very aggressive with them. That's interesting, and this is where I want to talk about fatigue. I was falling apart at this point. I was having trouble remembering how to play the game, making good decisions. Everything was difficult. We got Dawn of War. I got 3 ruins in each deployment zone, so I'm able to put each unit of Copters in a ruin. I can put my bikes out in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't really matter. He doesn't effectively shooting into them. They can't do much effective into a knight. Knights are Titanic, so I could literally just sit in those ruins and draw a line of sight to him, and he can't draw a line of sight to me. On top of that, I have the ability to move, shoot, move, and the ability to take Death Copters off the table. I literally, in the first turn, just forgot that I have the ability to sit behind ruins and shoot him, and he can't shoot me. This game was mine from the beginning, and I managed to lose it by like 50 points because I just forgot I had this ability, went into the center of the table, and just got wrecked. It was sort of just weird, like, sad scenario that I woke up to and then was like incredibly embarrassed. I'm like, I can't believe I'm playing this so very badly. And then after all of those mistakes had happened, I had some dice that also kind of went cold. So like, you make mistakes, you get into the bad position, and you're like, okay, well, here's my chance to get out. And then just like, oh, well, that didn't work out. And you're just deeper into a hole. And I felt like that just kept happening over and over again. And eventually I was just like, okay, we're done here. I will just throw my models into your knights and see if I can kill one before I go.
And to be clear, like Chuck's not blaming dice there when he says, you're innocent. He acknowledged he made mistakes, and he's like, that's when you end up where you're depending on the dice to pull you out of it, right? That's the scenario you want to avoid putting yourself into. It's not like you can acknowledge bad, like the dice, you didn't get the roll you want, but also acknowledge that you didn't have to be in the position to need that roll.
I put myself in a position where I need these 7 things to all be average.
Yep.
It's like, well, that's not how averages work.
No.
Well, good luck with that.
Like people.
Yeah. So I lost that game really hard, but part of that is because at some point I was like, I've lost this game. I might I've lost this game, but there's a 5% chance sitting right over there that I could still win. I'm going to lose really hard, but I'm going to swing for that 5% chance, right?
Sure.
Missed it. That's not a surprise.
Yeah.
But it was nice. I feel bad. I wish I had been more there so that Sean and I could have had a more interesting game. Him and I have been in the same meta for decades and have played each other lots of times. And I think every other time we've played, they've been really calculating games. And this one was just sort of like a total throwaway. So
sad.
Yeah.
But you also have been, personal life-wise, under incredible stress and busy like crazy.
Oh, yeah. I came to the tournament with no expectations set up on myself. I was joking about this the other day. Most of my games are in GTs right now. I don't do practice. Like I had practice RTT for this event.
You're living that is been my way the entire time. I'm like, I have one practice game to make sure that the army technically functions and doesn't run out of CP, and that's it. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, I keep getting very close to, but not actually doing. But like, get the table out, put the army on the table, and just practice moving my pieces around and like, I don't know, things like the clock. I do much better when I'm used to, like, I have my dice set out very specifically so that I can roll quickly. Because with orcs, it's not uncommon to be like, well, I need to roll 108 dice. So you need to know how to do that well and not waste a bunch of your thinking time with it. I'm still super happy with Speed Freaks. Had a game with Colin the other day into Nidzilla. And it concerns me that was Nidzilla without the -1 to hit bubble. I don't know how I could come even close to challenging it if it had the -1 to hit bubble. So that's very, very concerning. But other than that, I feel like I can play into actually every big piece in the meta and have a chance with them. And I think I'm beginning to understand all those different angles. So I'm just trying to refine a little bit. I do feel like the bikes are too much. They don't pay off often enough to have 9-man units. So a bunch of 3-mans, and then I can buy some buggies or something to put more hitting power in. But I'm still fussing with that, trying to figure out what the right combo is.
Sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
It's a good weekend. Looking forward to another one. I want to get another chance here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, great. And then I didn't go, but I do have Tyranid stuff to talk about. Because I'm still talking about Tyranids daily, and I'm still participating in the hive mind of badasses, where John Lennon is wrecking people with Tyranids, and Alex McDougall's wrecking people with Tyranids, and Tyler Bortell's wrecking people with Tyranids, and I'm sitting at home. So let's talk about the Crusher Stampede. White Dwarf rules, which is something I actively dislike. I don't want rules in more different places. I don't want rules in a place that doesn't stay in print. It's just all dumb, but fine. They're in White Dwarf. And they are focused on letting you play with the big bucks. It's a Army of Renown that basically makes it so that you can not take any model with under 2 wounds. So you can't take any Griblies. And then in exchange, all of your monster, and you don't get the benefit of your High Fleet trait. So if you're still going to be Leviathan because that's where all the good Octarius rules are, but you don't get the Feel No Pain, which is already dumb in Octarius.
Yeah, this is only losing a 6-up Feel No Pain, right?
It's a 6-up Feel No Pain if you're within like 2 millimeters of a synapse creature.
It's a caveated 6-up Feel No Pain.
It is, yes. You have to be near. You have to be near a synapse creature, not even in synapse aura.
Manage.
You've got to be like 3 inches from one. It's dumb. Anyways, and then all of your monsters get -1 damage, and everything in your army gets a 5-up invul. And you get a bunch of crazy strats. One of which that's you're in combat. Well, how about +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and +1 damage? Like what?
Yeah, let's be clear. They all just get to become veteran dreadnoughts. That's what.
Right? And then there's also, I'm charging you, and I'm going to do mortals on a 3-up or a 4-up, depending on what you are. And I'm going to roll a die for every remaining wound I have, maximum 6 mortals. Well, that's suspiciously like 1 CP for 6 mortals. That's what that is in a Monster Mash list. So there's a bunch of neat stratagems. There's transhuman. There's a bunch of stuff there. And I think it's really cool. So the list I played is the list that John Lennon thinks is the best one. It's also what Tyler Bortell likes. And it's one detachment of Leviathan.
I just gotta pause for a minute there. The fact that 2 of them agree on a list frightens me.
Yeah, I was about to say that's pretty scary. They normally do not.
No, it's true.
And that means that there's a lot of jank in it because Tyler's on board.
There's not that much jank in it.
Oh, okay.
It's the barbed hair duels.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair.
2 barbed hair duels. A Democharon. What? A Democharon? Trigon Prime. What? A Maleceptor. Okay. 6 Hive Guard, 9 Tyranid Warriors. Swarmlord, Neurothrope. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's like 21 models. It's completely insane. Doesn't sound anything like a Tyranid army.
So it's 3 squads of 3 Tyranid warriors, right?
Yeah. And 2 of them have the +1 to hit boon, the synaptic trait or whatever it's called. And then you give the Maliceptor the one that lets it reroll damage go out, because reroll damage is amazing on the Trigon if you're not pleased with how amazing it is on the Hive Guard. And then you also take the Trigon's synaptic thing, because it is fallback, shoot, and charge. You can take 4. You can just only use 3 in a turn. So the idea is that you only use that one when you need it, and the rest of the time someone's rerolling damage and another 2 units are getting +1 to hit. I'll be honest, the barbed Hyrule getting +1 to hit hitting on 2s is gross. So I could totally see why that's a thing. Hive Guard with Chapter Mastered and rerolling damage is also crazy. The Trigon, if you put all of the buffs on it, goes in and is like, hey, I do like 10 attacks, and I'm hitting on 2s rerolling, and I'm rerolling wounds, and all of my damage is high AP and does like D6 +3 rerolling. Like, it's... And that's after it did 6 mortals on the way in. So, it's a lot of damage. And Swarmlord's still there to catapult people. The Demicharon works because with -1 damage, he's quite durable. And also because it's so many monsters, they can only shoot certain ones. And after playing the list, it seems very obvious to me that the Demicharon is distracting people from killing the barbed Hyrules. Because the barbed Hyrules are a bit riptidy. Over 5 turns, they're just going to do too much damage for your opponent to stand up against if they can't either tie them up or shoot them. Traditionally, I've played against barbed Hyrules a lot because I'm in Tyler's meta. And traditionally, I like to charge them with a unit that's big enough that the 5 or 6 or whatever really high quality close combat attacks the barbed Hyrule has isn't enough to remove it from combat. And then Tyranids didn't have fallback, shoot, and charge, so you've just taken it off the table for a turn. Now the Trigon Prime's just like, well, that barbed Hyrule is just going to fall back, shoot, and charge. And the barbed Hyrule's like, okay, I'm shuffling back an inch. I'm shooting. Okay, I'm coming back in. And that's just really gross.
Yeah, you basically have to do it twice now to have an impact.
Right.
So I have a list that I have built just because I know I'm gonna have to deal with this stupid monster mash. That is the next version. And all I have to tell people is buy 3 + D3 damage. It's like that stonk is up. Like wherever you can find it, take it.
Yeah.
Get it.
Because it's also good against Thick City.
Yes.
Yeah.
The stuff that is good against this and Thick City have the same
Yep.
profile for being killed.
And that is a
except
problem.
for you have to worry about the toughness.
Yep, and that's the problem. So there's 3 different routes that people are going to fix it with thick Tyranids that I'll talk about in just a second. But my general
maybe we have Thick City and we have long bugs. Thick City long bugs.
I don't
know.
know.
It's Nidzilla, obviously.
Yeah. So there's 3 different directions people are going to Nidzilla that I'll talk about. I will tell you that having played it, having looked at it, having read about it, having talked to John and Alex and Tyler a bunch about it, I believe that the list that John Lennon is winning that's basically double Stealer, 1 Hive Guard, trash, 2 units of 30 Devil Gaunts. They're not quite 30s, but whatever. That list is just a better list. It just is. It can hide. It has nuance. It doesn't have to go ham at you. It can play the mission. It can beat on you. It can do all the things. If I were going to tournaments right now, that is the list I'd be playing. As fun as Nidzilla is, it is not as good as the top tier Tyranid list. That said, that top tier Tyranid list is very hard to play, and people are now seeing that. They're saying, well, John Lennon went 9-0 with it. How come I'm only going 4-2 or 3-3? Because it's hard. Tanner's one of the better players in our meta, and he took it to Slaneshbus, and he self-reportedly is like, wow, I made a lot of mistakes with this. Yes. Tyranids are hard. So if you are newer to 40k or do not consider yourself a super high-end strategist, probably Nidzilla could be the better direction for you to go. Nidzilla does a great deal of damage. It's very fun to push the giant bugs around. It does have some jank. It has some tricks that are neat. It is a raw wreck your opponent list. That is what it is. And
It's a hard list check. Yeah.
And I've played those a few times, and I'll tell you what the problem with them is. Eventually, and not even that uncommonly, you're going to go second on bad terrain against an army that's designed to kill you, and you're going to die. Sorry. If you're cool with that, and you want to go 4-2 or 5-1 and play big monsters, Nidzilla is great. You will, though, have a field like if you go second against double Castellan, right? Like, and they roll it all well. Like, you are very durable. But there are lists in the game that are crazy good against this. And unfortunately, as Chuck pointed out, the people that are building for Thick City, which if you're smart is everyone, because I don't think there's any argument that Thick City isn't the best list in the game. I think that it just is, and we just have to accept that for now. GW didn't need to buff Drukhari while nerfing them. That was not necessary. Anyways, Thick City is ridiculously gross, and everyone's going to be building to deal with it. So leaning into things that die to the same things that kill Talos and Kronos, I don't think is great, but I do think the list is very strong. So the three versions I'm seeing are the version I just talked about, which we're going to call the balanced version. Then a lot of people are taking Trogdor. Trogdor is not good. I'm sorry, he's not. Yes, with -1 damage, he's already -1 to hit, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you've taken a 700-point model that doesn't die. Trogdor does not do enough damage to warrant his points. And then there's a whole bunch of rules that are just being misplayed, and people are using that as an excuse to take him. He cannot hold anyone in combat ever. He just can't. If you charge someone, you'll punch them. They can literally take a step back and shoot you, no matter who they are. And you charged, so you're on the ground. And you know what on the ground means? Drukhari will charge you and you'll die. Admech will charge you and you'll die. Grey Knights will charge you and you'll die. Like, it is not Trogdor, I love him so. I'm sorry, Trogdor is the Harridan, for those that don't know what I'm talking about. Trogdor
that's right, he has another name.
Yeah. Trogdor Trogdor is simply not good. He cannot act on the first turn of Dawn of War. He cannot. I don't care what your TEO says. It is incredibly clear in the rules, and GW has said, and Frontline has said, he's not supposed to be able to go on turn 1 on Dawn of War. So, you can play Trogdor. He's fun. If you're trying to be the most optimized you can with Nidzilla, don't take Trogdor. Now, the thing that I don't know what to think of is I actually think that the Hierodule version, or the Hierophant version, the other super heavy, the big spidery, the big giant long-legged guy, the Hierophant. I actually think that list might be better than the Nidzilla list that I played. I don't own it, so I couldn't try it. There's a lot of complexity to that list, though. Now, first of all, a bunch of you are like, well, it can't move around on the table. Okay, nobody seems to know that it has fly, so let me just get that out there. It has fly. It is more durable than Trogdor. It shoots better than Trogdor. It punches better than Trogdor. And it can hold objectives, and it can tie people up in combat, and it does all of that for like 100 and change more points than Trogdor. It is simply better than Trogdor. You also can put, if you're not doing Nidzilla, you can put Gene Stealers inside of it. You can have them come out, go charge something and kill it, and then overrun back into it, and I think that's hilarious.
So one of the model issue is not whether or not it has fly. From what I've seen, I've played against Hierophants before. It is so large that trash can just get in the way of it being able to be functionally placed, because it can't necessarily be placed in an awkward way on the side of a building or something. You have to be able to straddle whatever you're trying to move over.
Well, yeah, I think what it does is, I think you actually take it I think you take it instead of the Trigon, and instead of the Trigon, instead of the Damacaron, and then you probably take one Barbed Hierodule out as well. I think you still have the Hive Guard, you still have the other Barbed Hierodule. Like, I think you still want shooting. What I think you do with it, people are thinking that the Hierophant wants to go all around the table. I don't think it does. I think it wants to hold the middle objective. If you're playing Nidzilla, it is a 20 whatever wounds of on that objective, 20 of whatever models on that objective. For 1 CP, it has OBSEC. But that doesn't matter because its legs are so big you can't get to the objective. So it's just standing on the objective. You can't get to it. If you get near it, it shoots you and charges you and charges you.
Um,
It does a ton
how
of.
how do the legs prevent you from getting on the objective?
Well, you can't be underneath someone's model, right?
No, you
It doesn't
can.
have a
You,
base.
it doesn't have a base. You can be under it, no problem, as long as you're outside of an inch.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Well,
super weird.
that's a side tantrum I have
Yeah.
about this model is that it's the way that it sits on the table doesn't make a damn bit of sense. It
No,
needs
it
to have a
doesn't.
base.
Yeah.
So
But it has. That's what I'm saying is you. I feel like the problem is that it has nothing to do with anything other than how Forge World designed and sells the model, and the fact that it's been around since like sixth edition or whatever.
Oh,
well,
it's
by that
because it's
argument,
not meant
can't
to be played
can't
in
the legs
competitive
just
play.
be straddling buildings and stuff? By what you just
If
said.
the buildings are tall enough to get to its belly, and it can't actually be laid
Yeah.
flat.
Yeah, I mean, yes, obviously, but it's
There's a
pretty high
lot
up in the
of-
air. Anyways, I think you can absolutely get it to the middle of the table without worrying about moving it too
Yeah.
bad. And it shoots really great. It can fall back, it can shoot, it can charge. You know, like, I think it's really an interesting thing to try. I'm not going to spend $500 to try it, but I think it's a really interesting direction to go. I know that several of my Tyranid friends, I won't name any names, are assembling them right now. So we're going to see them. They're going to happen. We're going to
yeah,
have the
there-
feedback.
There was one at Slaneshmas, to be
Yeah.
clear.
There was, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I wonder if John Lennon's building one. Let's just say that. And what would that be like?
I'm excited.
So, anyways, that's what I think of.
So I have
That's
a
what I think of
question.
Nidzilla. If you're looking to win a GT or a major, and you're a very competent Nid player, I do think that the Octarius list from before this is just better. But easier to play is a thing. So that's what I think of Nidzilla.
So I have a question. With Thick City and Nidzilla being so relevant to the meta right now, does that elevate Deathwatch as a possible for their ability to really play into those armies and have a vast amount of single damage, +1 to wound, like just overwhelm you in shots, sort of.
Do they have
volume?
AP on all that volume?
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
They should be able to get at least one AP on them.
I think Deathwatch is admittedly good against Thick City and against Nids as well. My issue with Deathwatch is that every time GW gives them rules, they decide that complicated is better than good.
Yeah, that's true. It's
Like
really
I'm
frustrating.
really disappointed by the Octarius rules for them. I really wanted to love that, and they're just not good. So
Well, it's hard to love something you can't understand. as my
yeah,
father's always said.
they're just unnecessarily complicated. And as a result, I think that Deathwatch, even if you beat Thick City and Nidzilla, you're going to lose to so much of the meta that I don't think it matters. I will say that I was talking to a bunch of my friends last night who've been going to nonstop tournaments, and they're more impressed with Templars than they thought they would be. So that could
Cool.
several of my friends believe that I like kind of top tier tournament friends believe that Templars are the top tier Marine Army right now. So that's the thing I'm really interested in. Like I haven't gotten to see them on the table since they came out. I'm really interested in that and how that plays into Thick City, because if that's the best Marines, they better be able to handle the best list, right?
Well, they do have a bunch of Thundergamers, and those do good work.
And they have a ridiculously impossibly hard to kill Terminator unit, which I enjoy.
Oh, those are always so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way I want to play Terminator. The only way I want to put Terminators on the table is if my opponent's going to be irritated at how hard they are to kill. Like that's the only. I only want to play it if there's actual negative feelings from my opponent about that Terminator survivability.
I think that's a requirement of Terminators in general.
Yeah.
Well, that's how they're portrayed. That's the thing, is they're supposed to be like, they get hit with things and you're like, that had to hurt them. No, they're still there. That's what they need to feel like.
Right. So I think that the problem with Nidzilla, that I'm going to say a third time because I think you guys need to hear it. Everybody's building for Thick City. This is bad timing for Nidzilla to come out. And it's also in a white dwarf for some reason. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the lightning round. The lightning round! So the idea behind the lightning round is that we've not seen these questions. And I'm going to go through and ask the questions that are appropriate, because some of these questions are not appropriate. And the idea is that we answer it quickly and we don't monologue on it, Mitch. That we don't.
I feel attacked.
You should feel attacked.
Yeah, you are attacked.
Yes, you feel. Yes, that was a direct assault upon you. It was not. I was not subtle at all.
I'm just saying, attack felt.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions here. If we spend a lot of time on them, we will not get through them. So question number 1 is from our very good friend from the Discord and locally, Mr. Decock. What is the worst unit in the game and that still has some play? Worst is hard because we don't have the time to go through the debate on that. So how about each of us talks about a unit that is bad but has play in the current meta and so is relevant. Who wants
Can
to
I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Crusaders.
Like the little guard ones?
Yeah, yeah. So they had all these FAQs that changed how their rules worked in 8th, and then when the new Sisters book came out, because all those rules were tied to the Crusaders being in that old Sisters book, all that went away. So now they just have their raw rules again, where they get a free either move, fight again, or bring back a model at the beginning of each turn. Which is adorable, and they still have a great invul. And if you can take up to squads of 10 of them, so they can be moving 12, fighting twice, like doing a bunch of different weird little nonsense. But they're 16 points each, 17 points each. Like they're garbage. They're not good. But man, there is some stuff you can do that people will not have planned for with them.
Yep. All right, Chuck.
My answer is actually very similar, but more chaos. Furies.
I expect nothing less.
They're 5 dorky little infantry models, but it's cheap. They go really fast, and they can do your missions. They can't do anything else.
I'm going to now name all of the Tyranid data sheets that are bad and are being propped up by the rules that Tyranids have recently got. Which is the answer to this question. Like, seriously, Hive Guard are great. Hive Guard would be great in any army. Hive Guard for their points. Put them in any army, they're great with their buffs, with the buffs they have. Like, you can't put them in an army and not give them the buffs. But, like, the Trigon Prime is not a good unit. Like, looking at its points for what it does, looking at the Flyrant, both of those guys are more expensive than a Dread Knight and just worse. Like, that's the whole Tyranid book right now. Tyranid Warriors that we're taking to make Nidzilla work are neat and all, but man, are they too expensive for what they do. So, like, my answer is basically all of Tyranids.
Yeah. Harpies. I'm gonna as the poster child of that discussion.
They're so terrible. John's been trying to make them work. They're so bad. They're so bad. All right, you can remove one faction from the game and add your own. What gets the chop, and what kind of faction do you put in?
Ooh. I'm gonna remove the Imperium.
Okay.
Is that available?
I don't think it's a good idea, but yes.
Oh, okay.
I actually have one. I don't have... What would I remove? I have what I would add, because I made a joke about this the other day in chat. So what I would add was... we were talking about squats and the idea that squats are going to come back at some point. I've heard so many rumors about this that it just amuses me greatly. So someone was like, what do you want squats to be like? And I said that I want them to be a sub-faction for Necrons.
I was into that.
Because I think we have too many armies that are monofaction, and it's dumb. Like, why do Empyrean armies get to pick from 37 books, and Necrons have 1? That's so dumb. So I was saying that the Necrons, the squats were trying to live on a Necron tomb world and got corrupted and taken over. And so now what you've got is cyborgs driving tanks and motorcycles.
I just want to see their little hover bikes turned into like mono-wheeled like motorcycles.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
Like,
it's basically what I want is a Necron biker gang. That's basically what I'm looking for. But I want them to also be dwarves, and I don't think I'm asking too much.
No, it seems totally fine.
And the army I would remove is Custodes. Ha!
Oh.
Why Custodes? Well, or Knights. But I think why Custodes? And not Custodes and Knights for the same reason. Both of those armies are fundamentally at odds with the way that GW has, for multiple editions now, created their game. Those armies are good when their points are too inexpensive, and they're bad when their points are too high. They are elite armies where you have so few models that you can just either roll hot armor saves and win, or roll crappy armor saves and lose. And I'm not talking about putting 3 Telemons in another list. I mean like the mono Custode thing. When I play against it, it just looks so dumb. It's just so dumb. It's not nuanced. It's not interesting. I do a bunch of damage with a few number of people that are hard to kill, and I'm going to stand on objectives. Good for you. So if I have to pick, I'm picking Custodes, which it will not be popular, and I don't care. What do you guys say? It has to be an Imperium faction that goes away, because, like, there's too many.
Because they have too many?
Yeah.
I want to add an old ones thing to the game. I think having some old weird lizard psychic monsters who come back and say, "This is our galaxy. Get out of here." Would be great.
Would they be like the Seraphon or like
I mean, I'm
bigger?
not going to say they're the same thing, but yeah,
Okay.
that would be them.
Can we just have an entire army of Cthulhu monsters? Of like Lovecraftian monsters? Can we just do that?
Isn't that Tyranids?
I think it's supposed to be chaos, but chaos don't have good rules, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Mitch,
Speaking of this year, I hope it gets better.
do you have a remove and add, Mitch?
I mean, so the easy answer is I would remove Eldar and put in Exodites so that I don't have to have Wraith constructs kicking my ass with broken rules. I can have dinosaurs kicking my ass with broken rules. But seriously, I would like to see, having listened to more like the Infinite and Divine and stuff like that, I would like to see an entire Satan subfaction added to the Necron books.
I would, yeah, that'd be
Knights.
cool.
So either a Satan subfaction, or I'd like to see either an entire Kroot
Yeah.
or other alien allies of Tau, and then I'd like to remove Tau if I did that. And then they'd just be the allies.
I
I'd
actually
like
think
to
that
see
each
is-
of those monobook armies should get an ally. And I think that for Tau it should be a Kroot book. I think Orcs should get a Grot book. And I think, because both of those things would make everybody happy. Like,
Yeah. I think it'd be nice if they made a mercenary book. Old school fantasy, they did this. They had a Dogs of War, which is just a bunch of different units and stuff that you could buy in any army.
Well, I think that should be Trays in the Infinite's Army of Renown, is that you can take units from any army.
I love that.
And you know, there's limits to it, and you can only take so much from different ones, but you just have a collection of like things out of time that you're able to play. That's how they bring back the old Ally Matrix guys.
I would like to make a tiny tangent that the listeners are just going to have to humor me for. If you guys are wondering why I'm talking about LVO the way I am, my best friend in the world just messaged. Everyone in his family is double vax. Most of them are boosted. Everybody, all of them have COVID today. All 5 members of his family. So, 4 members of his family. Just thought I would mention that. Just got a text while we were sitting here. And I promise he did not do high risk behavior. Anyways, okay, so next question. We talked about Crusher Stampede already. There's a bunch of questions here that I think are going to make people at Frontline really mad at us, so we'll move on from those. How delayed does worldwide shipping need to be before GW considers digital releases? Evidently, the much worse than what we've seen, which is hard to imagine. Do you guys have an answer for that?
What's a digital?
So our good friend Michael Tinte has a great way of explaining this. They are a successful book publisher in 2021, and so they are very hesitant to let go of that. I think it's just a cash stream thing. I think that what would have to happen is that they would have to have a competent app launch. So, you know, we're already in hypotheticals here, but if they could get an app that was a hit and showed them the potential of the subscriber, right now, I think the problem has been is they have had so many slow start apps or no start apps launches that it's shaking user faith in them, so they haven't seen any of the big upside of going digital. And whereas they look at all these books and they're like, hey, these these margins have been here forever. It's always worked for us. Our customers love our books. Like, why would we ever stop doing that? You know, the second that we just go all digital, then we devalue our blah 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 blah. They have to have the big digital hit, I think, to see the like money changes minds. It's just how it works, and I don't think until they see that big profitability swing that they're going to do anything differently.
Mm-hmm. I actually have a very practiced answer to this that is long, so I'll do it very quickly and I'll abbreviate it. I, for a living, deal with companies trying to transform old business models to modern business models. What I see from Games Workshop is long-term incredible risk to their market. Massive risk, gnarly risk that they're not doing anything about. The reality is that our meta is already completely decimated by piracy out here in the Pacific Northwest. Uh, Huge amounts of people here are 3D printing models instead of buying them, which is literally the worst thing that can happen to GW with how archaic their business model is. People offer me PDFs of codexes all the time instead of buying them. Sometimes I accept because you literally can't buy books from GW. Like Chuck went to a tournament last weekend, 2 weekends ago, 3 weekends ago, whatever. Chuck, how many tournaments has it been since you were at a tournament without the actual book for you were playing? I bet it's been a lot, right?
I think it's the first one.
Yeah. So they can't get books out. And their models are now out of stock everywhere in a lot of cases, and people are 3D printing them. So what I see is that their business model is under assault. That's what I see. And as 3D printers get easier and easier and easier to use and higher quality, this will become a bigger and bigger problem until GW will literally not have a way to make money that's meaningful. Now, the additional thing that's going to happen is COVID isn't going to go away, and we're going to have more pandemics like this one. And we're going to have more lockdowns and more situations where we can't go anywhere. So the fact that they haven't embraced the digital community, I think, is actually negligent to their business model. My dream, and this is not from them, this is not their idea, this is my idea. What I want is a GW in they don't have to make it, in fact they shouldn't make it, but a GW endorsed online analog for 40K, which they've actively told game designers you can't make. But I want a digital analog that's not TTS. I want it to have good graphics. I want it to play well. I want it to play quickly. I want it to be an actual, like, real product that people buy. And you have to buy that for $60 like any other computer game or whatever. And it comes with some number of units for each army. And then when you buy the tabletop model, you get the code that lets you have it for your digital army. So they get to sell the physical crap to you, and you get to play online. And then we have something to do when we're in COVID. And they get a huge amount of money that comes in because they'll make way more money on that than they ever will on selling physical product. The difference between software, you can have a margin of like 85%, and hard goods where you can have a margin of like 30% is pretty significant.
Well,
so anyway,
not to mention
that's what I think.
With supply chain and other things like that, it's just, the real world presents a lot more constraints. I'd also add to what Colin's saying there in that this is something we saw with the music industry in the 90s. We've seen it with the gaming industry in the 2000s and onward. Like, if piracy always emerges when things become inconvenient, and Games Workshop right now is prioritizing the print model, which is inconvenient to the reality of the shipping, of just the world right now. Like it's like, yes, if you had the ways to print it and ship it and get it to your customers, that's awesome. That's what you want to be doing. Fine, if that works, but you cannot do that, and they are not confronting that, and that causes people to find other alternatives that are more convenient. That's never a good thing. Their customer base is being trained to look other places than Games Workshop, and Games Workshop needs to take that head on and acknowledge it and change it and take control of the narrative for their own product.
I think that's great. I also think that's the most generous thing you can possibly say about the people that are 3D printing, which is they've made GW's made it too hard.
I was actually talking about like the PDFs for books. I wasn't trying to touch on. I was trying to touch on just for the rules side of things.
Oh, okay.
Like they're training people the wrong way.
I think
right
what's
now
happening
because they can't get it.
I think, I agree, and yes, exactly. I agree on the books 100%. Not being able to get us books.
No. Yeah, it's specifically you can't say, hey, this is the only way to access our product. You have to buy this physical product and then not have it available at all, and it's the fundamental way you interact with the product.
What I'm seeing, so the other side of that, the piracy side, what I'm seeing is a whole bunch of people that want to follow the meta without spending money. And and I think that considering that to meta jump is $1,500 a time if you haven't played that army before, maybe it's $800, right? But like I want to play Tyranids, and I don't, and I need the list, is not only a big hobby project, it's a lot of money. People don't want to spend it, and I'm not going to tell them they have to spend it, but I will tell you to Google copyright and IP laws, and you will find out that you're breaking the law. Okay. So, and you're doing nothing but hurting GW. Like, not buying the armies from them literally is how they make money. So the people that And I'll say one more thing about that. The people that design the models often are paid royalties. So the people that design the models that you're paying the 3D printed knockoff of, you're literally starving the artist that doesn't make that much money that designed that model. Okay, anyways, sorry. I feel really strong. In fact, we don't even let people talk about 3D printing and piracy in our Discord. So, okay, next question. Why are HiveGuard grade A bullshit?
Well, this lets me make a comment on what you were saying earlier, that if HiveGuard would have to have buffs to be added into an army to be good, and I'm like, no, if you just put them in guard without any buffs, they'd still be like the best indirect shooting we have. Like,
I don't know if that's true. They're the cost of 2 mana cores.
Sure, but you get D3, or you're getting what, 2 shots each?
Yeah, so you get 12 shots instead of 46 shots. That's not.
I mean, I don't know. The consistency is very valuable. Them being infantry is also very valuable.
Right.
Here's where it's different though.
Because they get
that
orders.
Would be in
then.
a guard army.
Yeah.
And what HiveGuard say is, if you're going to hang out on your side of the table and not interact with me, you're going to lose significantly every turn. It's like something's going to die. Guard don't necessarily want people to be like, okay, cool, then I will charge you with everything I have. Tyranids love it. You want to move your entire army mid-table because I'm going to HiveGuard you every turn, and now's the time to do it? Excellent. Let me show you my Gene Stealers. Let me show you my other monsters, right? Like, that's... I think it's really well positioned. My favorite thing in the game is to have a really strong fire base with a bunch of close combat that can basically force people to mid-table and let's do this.
That is what what all my lists are orienting around too now.
But 12 shots hitting on 3s, no rerolls, strength 8, AP 2.
Oh, they hit on 3s? I thought they hit on 4s. Yeah, no, they're way better.
Hold on. 300 points for 12 shots that hit on 3s, let's say with no rerolls, strength 8, -2, D3 damage with no rerolls. That is not worth 300 points in most armies. It works in Tyranids because we can make them reroll everything. Like, that's all I was saying. And because if we go second against orcs, they can be in a -1 to be hit aura, and they can be in a -1 strength aura, which also matters. Anyways.
I think the buffs are good. I don't think the unit is trash without the buffs, though.
I don't think it's trash. I actually said it was the one good data sheet in Tyranids.
I think Gene Stealers as well, but
not if you compare them in points to anything in Drukhari for close combat.
We're tangenting.
Anyways, HiveGuard. The problem with HiveGuard is that they are ridiculously powerful, efficient indirect fire in a game where indirect fire has been nerfed out of the game. That's what the issue is.
This is true. Yep.
That's why they're
saw it with orcs. We're gonna see it again with. I think that I have some guard stuff I'm working on right now. I think that guard are now back in a place where they can be relevant, just due to what other armies are relevant in the meta. So that's cool. With allies, you got to have allies.
Okay, this next question could take hours, so let's try to keep it 30 seconds or so for each of us. What are your thoughts
30
on
hours,
this?
got it.
What's that?
I said 30 hours.
Got it.
What are your thoughts on the state of the game, and what would you like to see short and long term to make it better? Who wants to go first?
My thoughts are confused. I feel like the game is really, really killy, and then all of a sudden it's really, really not. And I feel like it's basically, I guess, there's a lot of extremes in every army list, and so list mismatches are more common. I guess, and I don't like that. I like the game to be a little bit more about the play and less about what you brought. I do think it's really notable that no one gets killed on the first turn these days. So there have been mass improvements. I just think there's more to go.
But then everybody dies on the second turn.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
I think everybody should die in turns 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5. You're like, what can I do with my leftovers?
Yeah.
I think that's a fine game.
Yeah, I didn't have fun with our Nidzilla versus Orcs game at all.
No.
I don't like how killy the game is at all. I think that there is, like Chuck said, there is a lot of, I brought the wrong thing and now I die. There's a lot of that. And I know that we've always had S-tier things, and I know we've always had overpowered things, but how it feels to me is that this year we've just rotated what thing you have to take to win a tournament, and we've just changed it every few months.
Well,
And I haven't liked that, and I haven't thought it was interesting. And if you don't have those things, you just lose. That's all that happens. You just lose. And I don't care for that. So I think that to me the solution to that is really straightforward. They need to stop releasing campaign books that buff things that are already out, and they need to get every codex out, and they need to put their money where their mouth is on these quarterly updates. These quarterly balance updates could be the magic ticket to fixing the game, but you have to have more. It can't have the death of the middle class, which is what's happened, right? You have to have a ton of middle class if you're going to have a competitive game. You can't have three people that are rich and 100 people that are dirt poor and have that be a meta, right? Because that's what it feels like to me. Go ahead, Mitch.
So I would say one, I'm hopeful. I just based on the 3 month update thing, we have to see them enacted, obviously, and they have. But like to even commit to that is to recognize, hey, we need to be balancing things more regularly. I was listening to the Battle Hosts end of the year episode. Great episode. If anyone hasn't been listening to them lately, they're not putting out as many. They're actually going in a direction that's more big concept for the topics they're tackling. But their end of year episode covered all of the releases, and it's still one of the largest like lineups of releases that we've had from Games Workshop in general. Like this year, it's unfortunate that some of those releases were the campaign books, and they definitely caused larger rifts in the meta. I think that the other thing we have to keep in mind is that as more books get updated, the books that haven't been updated yet are going to feel even more acutely underpowered and worse. So the death of the middle class, like that Colin was talking about, I think is a little bit inevitable as things get updated. I think it's been stretched out way too long because, like Colin was saying, every couple months it's a different list. It's like, well, yeah, except for half of those lists were all Drukhari of some sort. And that's been the biggest problem. I feel like for me, and this is not like to take a shot at Drukhari players or anything like that. Drukhari have been so frustrating to play in the meta. I got to play against people at Charity Hammer. I played against Colin. I played against them in events, and it's just a better set of rules. And to let it continue to exist as a better set of rules and to not recognize that is frustrating. It just sucks. And that's the thing is like, it's something I've talked about on this podcast multiple times, and I won't like rant on it or anything, but like it's that meta churn. We've been stuck on the Drukhari button way too long. There's not been enough churn. We needed Thousand Suns to be the new big bad guy, and then something else, and orcs to have a couple different combos that instead of just the buggy list for a couple months that just made orc players feel resented. Like there needs to be that constant evolution of what's going on, so that we're all trying to solve the same equation, but it feels like at least new factions are on the rise, and funnily enough, like we've all suffered at the hands of Drukhari, which I feel like is pretty thematic. In that way, we can be like, oh, that they did cause the most suffering for the year, and in the meta, so that's on point. So.
Very lore appropriate, yeah.
Yeah,
Which I think that's really well put. And I think that data wise, I think it is very obvious that if you look at 8th edition and 9th edition, Drukhari is the worst written codex they've made. And when I say worst written, there are some codexes that are just trash, but the Drukhari codex is written in a way that's not nerfable, is what it would appear. They just nerf it. They've nerfed it twice and buffed, and also nerfed it 3 times? They've nerfed it 3 times.
3 times. It's gotten the GW patented triple nerf, which was enough to banish AdMech, which were arguably at their height more powerful. But like Drukhari, like the dropping points was just what?
Idiotic, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's frustrating, but I mean, all I can say is if they're gonna say, hey, we're gonna update every 3 months, cool. Put your money where your mouth is. I expect to see Thick City nerfed, in a couple months.
Okay.
Like that's what I'm hoping for. That's my hopeful side.
All right, I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna actually rewrite the next few questions a little bit to make them positive, because the last few questions we've been pretty negative. So, favorite model GW released this year? Let's have the orc player go first.
Kilrig.
Yeah. What do you like so much about the kill rig, Chuck?
Well, if you start at the front of the model, there is a giant, like, pig cow squig.
Uh-huh.
And then you get a ramshackle structure covered in boys with choppas who are like, hey, get off my kill rig. You get a harpoon gun. And then you get a lava. And then you know what you need to do? You put a tower on the back of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you jam a poor psyker up there. You chock him full of energy. And you shoot him at people.
Right.
It's amazing from the front all the way to the back. It's like a journey you go on. And then I get to make conversions of even better versions of that.
Well, how about you, Mitch? Do you have a favorite model from this year?
Oh man, that's hard. I don't know if I have a favorite.
It wasn't new, but I sure enjoyed, even though they were BS to play against, I sure enjoyed seeing all the AdMech planes on the table.
Yeah, no, I like that model a lot. I really like the what's her name? The new character for Sisters in the mech suit.
Oh yeah,
Morvenn Vahl.
Morvenn Vahl.
Yeah, that's a really good
that
model.
model's
Morvenn
great.
Vahl was just a fantastic model. And I actually really, 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 really like the Sisters battle tank. I look at that and I'm like, oh, that's what I want a Predator to look like. Like that Baroque, just like detail is just super cool.
Mitch needs Predators to have more candles. That's what he's basically saying.
Well, I mean, everything should have more candles. Like,
No,
we
they
should be
really
fighting on a field of candles.
It didn't come out this year, but I'm still saying the Eldar preview because like Eldar hasn't had new models in so long. They got a new Spirit Seer model like several years ago, and we were treated like that was the lottery. Like when Eldar players could play, people were like, you just got a new model. I'm like, yeah, there's been 700 Marine kits this year. What do you?
The rest of them are still older than you.
Yeah. So, Resin Rangers are the worst thing I've been forced to play with. Of all of the armies I've taken to tournaments, almost all of their guns are broken. They don't look good painted, even by Stephanie. The plastic ones that they're releasing that are so... I figured they'd be the direction of the one from Blackstone Fortress, and they are. I just think they're gorgeous. I think the bikes with the sniper dudes on the back are super cool looking. They're also included in that as a bit of a modernization of the bike from the previous ones. Like, I just love that direction, and I don't know what else is getting plastic, but if there's a new Avatar of Cain model, I will have a hard time not playing with it, even if it's bad. So we'll just hope that that's
Eldar
the case.
continue to be the model line that I love to look at and have no desire to paint. Like, they're beautiful.
Yeah, but you also you don't like elves, and that's fine.
Well, no, I just like, I do like the models, especially Wraithbone stuff. Like, it's just, I don't ever want to paint it. I like the chunky, big Imperium look. Like, that is what I enjoy painting. And I look at that stuff and I'm like, I don't know where to start and stop. It's not my style. But man, they're cool looking. The new bikes with the snipers on the back, like, having listening to a bunch of lore lately, like thinking about Eldar having the reflexes to be able to sniper, like, shoot someone while on the back of a jet bike going, however fast over the battlefield is a really cool concept. It's a great way to exemplify the precision and like the perfection they're supposed to have.
The next few questions are all about our Discord. I'm going to answer them very quickly, mostly for the entertainment of our Discord. How much of a personal role model and father figure is Mike Brandt for the podcast? No. Who is the best contributor to Small Blood? Question unclear. What does best mean here? I could read it both ways when you're dealing with Small Blood. What's the best and worst thing you've read in the Discord all year? Innis. Okay, we got through those questions. And then Paul asks a wildly inappropriate question about Chester the Cheetah's anatomy. Okay.
It's true, though.
What is your most prized hobby tool? I like this thing. I like this scraper thing that GW released.
I have that. It's great. It's a solid.
Because I'm not good at cleaning models, and I like that it's got the two different sides that are different levels of enthusiasm in your cleaning of models. I like the cleaning models. Like, I like putting models together. I even kind of like painting models. I don't like cleaning models. So I appreciate that makes it quick. I don't know if that's actually my favorite. It's just the first thing I thought of. How about, I'm sure Chuck has something.
Tester's plastic glue.
Oh, well, yeah. You mean the best plastic glue in the world? I can see that.
Yeah.
My Sotar 2020 with the medium tip. That is my new favorite airbrush.
Just a medium tip, not a full.
Yeah.
Well,
When you don't feel like you want the full tip.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's just for priming. No, the medium tip has been really great for doing all the robots. The robot scale. It's great for covering those larger surfaces, but also being able to do some great detail. So that's my favorite right now.
I just recently traded my airbrush. That's how I feel about airbrushes.
I know.
Bye.
Some of us can't be as talented as you, Chuck. Some of us have to use machines. Can't just rely on the chaos within.
Man, this conversation.
Yeah.
Needs a phrasing warning.
Pickles has a question for us.
All right.
Okay.
I had a dream that the on-foot Eldar models were old metal releases that were partially painted instead of new sculpts. How much would this set the internet on fire? And I'm going to say yes.
Library of Alexandria.
I mean, I'm on board with this plan. Let's do it. How can we make it? Like, I know that there have been some quote unquote leaks of like points costs and stuff that were really trolling people.
Some of which I don't even think were true, which is even better.
Oh, none of them were true. They were so clear. I'm like, why would you like take a picture at 45-degree angle and out of focus? Oh, because you just want to make it obvious that it's a Photoshop.
Yeah. The final question is not one we should answer now. It is one that we should make as part of our 100th episode, which is next. Our 100th episode, which I have started planning, it'll be in the next couple weeks, and we're going to have some guests on, and we're going to do some, John Quinnell from Grim After Dark is going to help me create some games for Mitch and Chuck to participate in. Maybe I'll participate too. We'll see how that goes. We're going to have some ridiculous games. I'm hoping they're as ridiculous as when he made Danny play member of the 40K meta or real estate broker from North Carolina. Like, I thought that was
it's a great game.
And Danny got his own name wrong, which was the best part of that.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you help lower skilled players get up to the next level? And I can't think of a topic that's better for the 100th episode than that, right? Like, on a show where we've spent so much effort on self-improvement.
Man, we had meetings about this. We said we were going to discuss female space marines. I have all this research. Like, fine.
Man,
yeah.
I don't
even want to be on that episode.
No, I don't want to be on that episode either. The level of mad people get when characters from source material that's 50 years ago get turned from men into women is mind-blowing. Like, it's like, wow, you're really mad about this. Okay. Yeah. The latest thing I've noticed online is that people are mad that Captain Marvel is as powerful as she is because she's a chick. And I'm like, she's also a pretend character. Like, I don't what? All right, anyways. Okay. So that's what we got for this time. That's the questions we have. It has been a lot of fun. Our next episode will be episode 100, which we will promote at least a week in advance so that you guys can be on live for that one. We'll put it on our Facebook page. I'll put it on our Twitter if I remember how to make that work. I don't ever use it, but we'll make that happen. So we'll have a big 100th episode. I'll start planning it right now, and it will be absolutely fantastic. So with that, I can't think of anything else we need to tell the good people about. Can you guys?
Go check out Outward Realms. That's basically it. Like,
man, I want another game.
It's a rad game. You can buy the army packs. They have a store up. Like, you can get individual models if you want to augment what you've already got. It's awesome.
All right, I agree wholeheartedly and enthusiastically.
Enthusiasm.
Yes, that's right. All right, everybody. I hope you guys, for those that celebrated it, I hope you had a very Merry Christmas. For those that celebrate the next part, have a fantastic New Year. We are done. We're out for 2021. A year just as BS as 2020 has been wrapped up. And we will talk to y'all in 2022. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Please stay safe while you're playing 40K. We don't want anything to happen to you or to anybody else in the community. Bye now.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.